Hello and welcome everybody back to a Driver Deck Brew live and in person. Except we're not live necessarily, but you know what I mean. Today we have a new and cool commander called Belbe. Now you guys really liked this last time. You liked the Malcolm Kedis video a lot, and there was a lot of feedback, and you guys just enjoyed seeing my process of how I make decks. So I've got a new one for you guys today. Now, today, similar to Malcolm Kedis, when we're live brewing, we want to make some decks that are pretty powerful, right? And that have a clear thing that they're looking to do. In this case, Belbe allows us to add a lot of mana after our post-combat main phase. It allows other people to do the same thing, but we're going to capitalize on this a lot better than most other players. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to play one of these very, very mini one-drops that allow us to attack, and each opponent will lose a life. Then on our second turn of the game, we're able to cast something that's a 6-drop, if we're able to do it right. So basically 1 mana, play something that attacks. The next turn we have 2 mana, we cast Belbe, we make every opponent lose life. Post-combat happens, and we have 6 mana added to our mana pool, and we can just drop a 6-drop like it's nothing. Or anything, of course, below a 6-drop or whatever, with relative ease and consistency. So because of that, I just really found this deck to be pretty cool, and we're going to do some live brewing for this today. So in our 1-drop slot, we're going to have quite a few of these things that do this, so we can consistently get here. I've already got like the list kind of right next to me, but I'm just kind of showing you my process. So we have things like Pulse Tracker, right? We've got things like Vicious, Conquistador, right? A lot of these cards. Basically, it says whenever it attacks or becomes tapped, each opponent loses a life, and it's simple as that. We have a few more, something like Thornbow Archer, and we have this one as well, which is interesting, but Thrall Parasite. It has Extort, right? So you're not going to get it on turn 2, but what you can do is you can play Thrall Parasite on turn 1. Maybe you have a turn 2 play, maybe you don't, maybe you play land, and then on turn 3 instead you play Belbe with the Extort cost of black, and then you're able to do it on turn 3. Oh darn, we're only able to play a 6-drop on turn 3. What a shame. But that's fine for us. Now, we've got another few pingers that are going to try to get us there. So we've got Glaring, Flesh Raker. We've got Loyal Subordinate, which is going to deal quite a bit of damage over time, as long as we have our commander. I mean, dealing 9 damage to the entire table before combat, or during combat, I guess, is pretty crazy. We, of course, retreat to Hagra. We've got Sanctum. How do you spell Sanctum? Sanctum of the Stone Fangs. Now, the reason we like this, it's only going to deal 1 damage, but again, we only need to deal 1 damage. Sanguine Siphoner. We're going to have Blood Sucker. What's it called again? Vampire? Creeping Bloodsucker. There we go. And, of course, Scrawling Crawler. So this one's good. This one gives us an extra draw every single turn. This one's going to ping and give us some life. Ping, 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 ping. We got all of these things. Now, if you don't want something like a Creeping Bloodsucker, or you don't want the Thrall Parasite, right, you can just remove these. We'll probably do this, but this is an okay card, so we might get rid of this one. I'm not really sure. We'll just keep it like this for now. So we've got plenty of ways to ping our opponents. Some of them are going to happen after we cast Belbe. Some of them are going to happen before we cast Belbe. Basically, the goal of the deck is to be as efficient as possible, right? We're trying to hit them with a ton of damage at the very beginning, and then we're trying to play on turn 2 a 6-drop. Like, that's the point. We're trying to hit them, ping them, make 6 mana, and then cast some 6-drops that are going to be really, really big and powerful. So we've got a lineup of 12 6 or 5 drops that are going to be really powerful for us, and then, of course, later on we're going to add some even more powerful cards that are going to help us get there even better. So first up is Conduit of Ruin. Now, this is kind of an eldrazi list, right? We're going to go by mana value. So This is kind of an eldrazi list, right? Not even kind of. It really just is an eldrazi list. If we're going to make a ton of mana, the best way to pay off from that mana is by playing a lot of colorless spells, because we make a lot of colorless mana. And of course, Eldrazi's are going to be some of the best payoffs for that. So if on turn 2, you can play a 6-drop that's going to let you tutor a card that's 7 or greater, and it's going to make that next turn on turn 3 cost 2 less, you're going to be able to cast that with relative ease. So this is going to go get us some of our most powerful things like a Zuladak or an Ulamog or a Kozilek or Bane of Balaged, like any of these things that are going to deal a ton of damage or have huge board impacts, and we can have it as early as turn 4 with something like Conduit of Ruin. So we definitely want that. Another thing, if you want to consider Belbe as a little bit of a group hug, because we're letting other people add mana too. Coveted Jewel is something like that. You're going to draw 3 cards. You're going to add 3 mana of one color, and then if somebody ever attacks you and we can't block, then they're going to draw 3 cards and they'll get control of it. So good for them. We also have, of course, Dreamstone Hedron. This is going to help us a lot when we're trying to ramp into the later stages of the game. We have Endbringer as well. This is going to be great. We've got something like a God Pharaoh statue. Now this one's going to be great. It's a huge stacks piece. I mean, right here. You could also go with something like a Silent Arbiter, right? When we have a lot of mana, we can just kind of, make everything crazy. So we can only attack with 1 creature, which means we can attack with like one of our ping people. Then we hit this. The only thing is that's just 4 mana. So we've got 2 mana on turn 2 to kind of just play around with. If we had like an Arcane Signet or anything like that, that could be cool. But for now, we're just going to keep this out of the way. Then we've got a Horizon Stone. This is going to allow us to kind of store some of that mana if we want to. It's not required, but I just kind of like it. Oblivion Sower. Now this one as well. This one's pretty good. It's going to help you ramp a little bit. Hopefully you hit a land or 2. And that'll be really nice. Then we got Planar Bridge. This is just absolutely broken. If you're able to cast it on turn 2, right, you have at least 2 lands because you cast Belbe. You do that. The next turn, turn 3, you're able to do the exact same thing, make 6 mana, and now you still at least have 2 lands. So you tap that, you have 8, and now you just go get whatever you want. So you can go get one of these, or you can go get something like a Thran Dynamo, or you can get the Kozilek or the Ulamog, or any of these crazy creatures that we want, and it just goes straight onto the battlefield. Isn't that nice and broken? I think so. Next, after that, we've got Staff of Nin. Now this one's gonna be great. It's gonna draw you some extra cards, and in worst case, you're gonna at least be able to ping somebody for some damage, but it's just a great 6-drop. Then we've got Still Hellkite. This guy's gonna let us get rid of a lot of our opponent's stuff. If I could only spell, Making magic decks doesn't mean that you're going to be great at spelling. We're going to have Ugin. He's going to allow us to manifest the top card of our library. He's going to let us destroy things, and he's going to reduce the cost of basically everything. This is a great one. Then we have Wandering Archaic. This one's actually pretty crazy and is a pretty crazy stack piece as well. I mean, you're going to be able to copy basically any instant or sorcery that somebody casts. So if somebody casts removal on Belbe or anything like that, you can just remove something in return. If someone wants to counter anything, you can just counter something in return. A lot of great stuff over here. So these are our kind of just big guys that we want to be casting on turn 2, right? Simple as that. We do this with relative ease. We keep a hand that has one of these guys. We play Belbe on turn 2. We make 6 mana from attacking with one of these, and then we cast one of these. That is obviously the ideal scenario. It's not always going to play out like that, but when we have enough pingers and we have enough ways to just kind of drop a good old 6-drop on the battlefield, we're going to be able to do this with relative ease consistently in most games. In a lot of games, so a lot of games, you'll be able to do this. Most games, turn 3 is when you're going to be doing something because you'll cast Belbe, and then you'll have 6 mana, and there's not really a lot that you can do with it, right? Other players are probably going to capitalize that off the mana that they get a little bit more, but usually they're only going to get like 2 mana, so a Soul Ring, whatever. Then on turn 3, you're going to have 3 lands, and now you're going to have 9 mana that you could possibly get. So because of that, we have a lot of really high-costed 9 mana spells. So let's go into that as well. We're going to have Artisan of Kozilek. Now, some of these, obviously, like Artisan of Kozilek, you're going to be able to get something from your graveyard, but you're not always going to have something in your graveyard, right? So it's not always going to give you the most value out of it if you're able to play this on turn 3, but at the same time, it's a 10-9 on turn 3 with Annihilator 2. There's not much that's going to be able to stop you when you play something like this, right? We also have some things like Bane of Balaged, like we talked about earlier. We have Breaker of Armies. This one's going to be great, right? I mean, everything has to block it, and it's a 10-8. So you're basically going to be just board wiping somebody because it's going to be turn 3 or turn 4. They're not going to have a lot of responses to something like this. You just do that. You kill basically every creature that you need to. So that's really fun. We've got Desolation Twin. This one's great. For 10 mana, you just make 2 10-10s. Isn't that fun? We've then got Kozilek. Now we've got a lot of the Kozileks, right? So we're not going to have the super expensive Kozilek, but we are going to have the one from Modern Horizons 3 and the one from whatever one this is. Ooh, Oath of the Gatewatch. I definitely knew that. I definitely was around when that set came out. No, I was not. So we've got that. We've got then Phyrexian Triniform. Now this one's great because it also has an echo cost, right? So anytime it dies, you're going to create 3 Phyrexian Golems. The thing is that you're then going to die, and then you'll have 12 mana because it's easy to make 12 mana in this kind of deck. You're going to exile it, and now you're going to make 3 of these, which means at the next end step, you're going to have 9 3/3 Phyrexian Golems. So isn't that awesome? Next, we have a Spawn Bed Protector. Now, this card is really cool. It's going to allow you to recur things over and over and over again and make you Eldrazi spawns that are going to make you a lot of mana. So that's always fun. We then, of course, have Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. We have Ulamog's Crusher, which is pretty epic. And then, of course, we have the newest, one of the newest, actually, Zuladak. Now, this is going to give everything that we're casting here Cascade, which is, it's pretty great. It's pretty great if I do say so myself. So these are some bigger ones that usually are going to be able to cast on turn 3 or turn 4, because hopefully you're still doing at least the same thing. But if you're a little bit late and behind schedule on some of these pings, you'll at least be able to trigger it on later turns like 4, like turn 3 or turn 4. So you can get to like 9 mana, you can get to 10 mana in most cases, and then 8 mana and 7 mana. Those are easy ones to hit. Those are easy targets. So those are some things that we're also trying to do. We have a few other creatures that have some colors in them, so they're going to take a little bit more restricted access because you need to have lands in most of these things. So we've got something like an Apex Devastator. This, of course, is a 10-drop, but you're cascading 4 times, which means you're just going to get most of these Eldrazi's. Of course, there's going to be some smaller spells that you might run into, but for the most part, you're going to get that. We also have a Terastodon, which is great. You're going to be able to just destroy 3 non-creature permanents for basically free on turn 4. So anybody that is starting to set up with some enchantments, we're going to say no, and they're just going to go away. And then, of course, we have World Breaker as well, which is just some more removal on top of being a 5/7 with reach. So they're not going to be able to do too much against that either. Now, this is basically our entire creature suite. I think we have a few more, and in that case, we also have just some stuff that's going to help us be a bit more consistent. So Fierce Empath is allowing us to get a creature with mana value 6 or greater. So basically any single creature in this entire deck. And then, of course, we have Eternal Witness, because you're not always going to be able to keep these around. Some of them are going to be in your graveyard, so we want to get these creatures back. So now we have our creature suite. These are all the creatures that we're going to be using. And we got a few other cards in here as well, but most of these are just creatures that are going to help us ping, enchantments that are going to help us ping, and then some big payoffs. A lot of 6 mana payoffs, some 5 mana payoffs as well, that are really just going to hit the ground running and hit our opponents hard. For some reason, I thought Zuludok was a 7 drop. That's my bad. We also have Zuludok in our 6 mana drop spot, which means you can cast Zuludok as early as turn 2. Isn't that awesome? I think so. So, from here, there are going to be a few more things that are going to help us ramp, right? And we want some stuff. Obviously, Arcane Signet is good. It's just, you know, basically the best 2-drop when it comes to ramp. We have something like a Cryptolith Fragment, which is awesome sauce, and of course it can turn into something else, right? Each opponent loses 3 life. It's not really that good, but this is gonna be the best one. Each player loses 1 life. You can cast something on your main phase, everyone's gonna lose a life. Then your second main phase, you're making 6 mana, so that's pretty awesome. We have, of course, Everflowing Chalice. Now the reason we like Everflowing Chalice is because if worst case scenario, right, Everflowing Chalice is not something that's good, right, but we have it in our opening hand. We make 6 mana on turn 2. We can just make a Thran Dynamo for 6 mana, basically. Speaking of Thran Dynamo, that's the last little thing that we have that's going to make us a ton of mana. Some cool things about Thran Dynamo, and just about any of these mana dorks, really, or mana rocks, is that you can really be flexible with your mana, right? If you have, let's say, 7 mana in your pool, you can use 4 of that to then cast Thran Dynamo, and then you can tap this. You still have 3 mana left in your pool, plus the 3 mana that Thran Dynamo gives you, so you still can cast one of these 6 drops as well. So just remember that. You can cast some of these mana dorks that are going to help you get more mana. Like, they're not going to net you mana in most cases, but they are going to let you cast something on top of casting another thing because of just how they work, and they're going to, you know, help you get a lot of mana. So that's cool. Next thing that we have all these dang creatures, right? We need to start going into our land base just to figure that out real quick. So of course we have something like a command tower. We have Dark Boar Pathway. We have Exotic Orchard. We've got a lot of forests. We've got a lot of swamps. Greetings, and sorry for interrupting this beautiful live deck brew, but if you're seeing this, the secret word is hamburger. Last time we did cookie, and you guys seemed to like that. You guys made some very creative comments about it, and this time it is hamburger. So I hope to see you guys in the comments section below making some creative comments with the word hamburger. And then we just have a few more that are going to be, you know, double lands that are going to help us. Llanowar Waste is one of these. Tainted Wood is another one. Right? Most of these are good. And then, of course, Woodland Cemetery. Now, we're just going to add these for now. And then we're going to add most of these. We'll add 14 here. And we'll add 14 here. So, this is great for the amount of lands that we're looking to have. 36 lands is fine. We have a lot of basic lands, right? So, not a lot of mana fixing. But this was a part of a kind of deck building challenge that I was a part of anyways, where most of these are going to be the inexpensive land bases with a few of the double lands that are going to help us out quite a bit. I don't know why. Oh, this is not what we're looking for. Let's switch to Aether Drift, huh? Who's excited for that? Not me. Not that it's bad. For me, I'm just not a huge fan at the moment, but I could be swayed. I am a fan of Magic the Gathering, so I'm not necessarily against it. All right, we're going to finish this off. No more lollygagging, okay? We're going to finish this off with some of the value spells and just some of the spells that are going to be good for us in the long run. So we've got, obviously, Sol Ring. How could I have forgotten our trusty, dusty Sol Ring? It's a great card. We're then going to add a Strionic Resonator. Now, the reason we're going to add Strionic Resonator is because you can get Belbe. Instead of 6 mana, you're going to take 2 of that away, and you're going to make 12 mana. You're going to net 10 because you're going to copy it for 2, so you'll net 10 mana. But, I mean, who's going to complain about netting 10 mana when we have some crazy 10 drops over here, right? I'm not complaining. That's for sure. So, one last thing. We've got a Pathrazor to Ulamog. I can't believe I forgot this one. Pathrazor of Ulamog is really, 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 really good. Now, we basically have the rest of the entire deck kind of created, right? Most of these are creatures. Most of these are just trying to ping the table, hit everyone for a ton of damage, and then, finish the game off from there. So what we're going to try to do is just add a bit of our splashy cards. Now, we do have Cascade in here, so in most cases, you don't necessarily want to add X spells, but the goal is not Cascade. If the goal was Cascade, we wouldn't want to have X spells. But I'd rather run the risk of cascading into some X spells and saying, oh darn, that stinks, than not having X spells when we make so much mana. So we're going to add some of those right now. We're going to have Damnable Pact. We're going to have Exsanguinate. Genesis Wave. Oh my gosh. We're going to then add Torment of Hailfire. Now, the crazy thing about most of these, right? Genesis Wave, in most cases, you're not going to actually hit super early, right? You're not going to do anything crazy super early with Genesis Wave. You need 3 green sources. It's actually pretty hard to come by. But there are plenty of times where you can Torment to Hailfire for quite a bit on turn 3 and turn 4, and you're basically just going to win the game from there. They're either going to take a ton of damage because they don't want to sacrifice their stuff, or they're going to have to sacrifice all their stuff in order to not die and get taken down to 10 HP, in which case you have all these Eldrazi's that's just going to hit them for at least 10, right? So Torment of Hailfire, really, really good. Exsanguinate, you're basically just going to drain the entire table. You're going to gain at least maybe 27 to 30 life, depending on the X value. And it's pretty crazy, and it's hard to come back from that point, after that. Like, there's not much that people can do when you do something like that. Genesis Wave, obviously, when you are able to get it off, you're just going to be able to put half your deck onto the field, which is going to be crazy. And then Damnable Pact is something that's going to help you refresh your entire hand once you get to basically 0. Now, when you have so much mana, you have a lot of mana to deal with to cast a lot of these spells. So there are some times that you're not going to have a very big hand. Because of that, really, anytime you have a target that, like, you can go tutor up a creature, right? Like the Fierce Empath or Conduit of Ruins or Planar Bridge, you're always going to try to go get Kozilek, because this is going to let you draw back to 7 cards. So this is kind of your first target, is the Kozilek. If you have any sort of tutor, I'm going to go get my Kozilek. I'm going to leave it at that. Simple as that, right? The next one, of course, is something that's going to help you cascade. So Apex Devastator is a great one to go get. Zuladoc is a great one to go get. Zuladoc you can only get with Fierce Empath. You can also get it with Planar Bridge, but you're going to lose 2 mana, basically, for doing that. But Conduit of Ruin is only 7 drops, so you would get probably Kozilek or Apex Devastator. Ulamog is obviously great, right? But you don't necessarily need an Ulamog, right? I mean, Ulamog is awesome. Yes, you get to exile 2 permanents, and then you get to exile top 20 cards of any player's library when you do attack them. But Kozilek's going to help you draw the cards and start countering spells. Apex Devastator is going to give you 4 permanents, or, sometimes X spells. Oh well, that's fine. They're just going to give you so much value for the amount of mana that you're spending. So we want to go get some of those. Of course, you can go get removal like Terracodon, Worldbreaker, right? Bane of Valaged. Those are always great as well. It's just that Kozilek and Apex Devastator are going to also have the same chance of getting you these things anyways, because you're cascading or anything like that. The other Kozilek's also really good. This is essentially a draw 4 cards, just like the other Kozilek that's really expensive. And then all your Eldrazi's are going to get a huge buff as well. So just really good cards all around. Obviously, Eldrazi is going to be a pretty powerful format, or powerful archetype in this format. So especially when you're doing it so early on. We're going to have Garruk's in Garruk's Wake. We're going to have Rishkar's Expertise. And we're going to have Soul's Majesty. Now, these are all just great other value spells. Soul Majesty and Rishkar's Expertise obviously are here to redraw you an entire hand, similar to what Kozilek's trying to do, or Apex Devastator, or the other Kozilek trying to do. In Garruk's Wake, I mean, when you can cast this on turn 4 or 5, and now you have an entire board of Eldrazi's, and they have nothing, or no creatures at least, you're doing pretty good. And if you have some of these creatures with Annihilator, like Annihilator 2, or you've got Annihilator 2 over here, or, you know, some of these just have so many Annihilator triggers, that's when it's going to get pretty crazy, right? So you get Ingarrick's Wake, then they have to hit the Annihilator trigger. They're going to have to sacrifice anything else that might actually be helping them. So they're just going to be set too far behind, and they'll probably maybe concede at that point, but who really knows? Now, the last couple of things, we want to be able to protect. We want to be able to interact in other ways, right? We're already going to be overpowering them on the board, right? But there's a few things out there that might stop us, and most of those that are going to stop creature combat, because you're going to win most creature combats, but some things can stop creature combats. So we want something like an Assassin's Trophy. Those are always going to be great. Desecrate Reality. This is always good too. You know, you're going to exile some permanents for each player's side. Where is this? A 7-drop, right? Right here. So it's pretty good. And then you can also return something to the battlefield, which is awesome. We're going to have Nature's Claim. And that's basically it. We have some other things in terms of permanents and actual creatures that are also going to help us remove things. So we got plenty of ways to interact that way. They all have Annihilator 2 as well, so that's going to get rid of a lot of stuff. Now we need some protection. So a lot of stuff is going to be going Belbe's way, even though it is helping out our opponents. So we'll need something like an Imp's Mischief. That's going to stop people from getting there. Malakir Rebirth is always great and can act as a land if we need to. We're going to have Revitalizing Repast. Where is that? Revive. Repast. Right here. It's also going to be a land. And then we'll also have, you know, stuff like Reclaim, which is just good value. And Return of the Wild Speaker. Now, Return of the Wild Speaker is going to be basically an overrun as well as another Soul's Majesty if we need to. So, that is the deck. This is the deck of cards that we have settled on, folks. So, with something like this, you know, the goal is obviously very simple, right? You're trying to play something on turn 1, and you're mulliganing aggressively for something like this with 2 lands, a green and a black source. Be able to play an untapped black source on turn 1. That's going to play one of these things. Then you're going to try to cast Belbe on turn 2. You're going to ping everybody by attacking. Then you're going to go all the way over here. And hopefully you're going to have a 6-drop that you can just cast immediately. Most of these 6-drops are going to help you out a lot. And yeah, so let's do just a couple of test hands to kind of showcase what we're looking for. This is probably not keepable. We have no way of pinging. And I mean, obviously we don't have anything turn 2 that's really going to help us. We have no ramp, no pings, no nothing. So we're going to ship this one. This one is keepable in my opinion, right? You would probably play something like the Shrine or Sanctum, sorry. Yeah, it's a Shrine, whatever. You play that, you'd do this, turn 1, you'd go to turn 2, cast the Sanctum. Turn 3, you go here, you cast Belbe. Everyone has already lost because pre-combat main phase. You go to post-combat main phase, and now you have 7 mana to deal with if you want. You probably just play Conduit of Ruin, or of course you play Ugin, or of course you play Wandering Archaic, and it's turn 3, and you have something crazy. You do this, you probably go get a Kozilek. Next turn, you cast the Kozilek, everything gets crazy, you know. Now you just kind of go from there. Next, we probably don't keep this as well. We've got a bit of interaction, but again, nothing that's going to really spike us super hard in the early game. Same thing here. This one's fine, right? This is also going to be able to ping everybody. The thing is that the next colorless spell that we have is 5 mana. It's going to take us a long time to get there. At minimum, turn 5 to even get there. And then in that case, we ping them. Then we make 6 mana. We can cast this, but we're waiting till turn 5. And it's not that that's slow. That is, you know, pretty fast actually. But when we're trying to do something on turn 2, turn 5 is pretty slow. Here, same thing. I mean, we've got a lot of gas, but we don't have really anything to do, right? We're digging pretty far in something like this. This one's keepable though. Look at this, which would be like what? Go down to 5. You'd probably put this one on the bottom, and probably this one on the bottom, or maybe return. So yeah, we would draw a card, play the swamp, go to turn 2, play the forest, tap 2 for this, right? Then next turn, boom, simple as that. Cast Belbe, cast Ugin. Here you go. Now you've got colorless spells that cost 2 less. You have these. You can manifest the top card of your library through Ugin, or you can destroy something. As early as turn 3, we're doing some of these things, right? It's pretty crazy, pretty fun. No lands. We're not going to keep this. This is our third and final hand that we're looking at. Same thing. A lot of gas, but not a lot of pings. There we go. Look at this. So we have, this is perfect. This is down to 6. So we'd probably just get rid of this guy. Bottom of library. Awesome. So we'd flip this. We'd draw for turn. Here, cast this. Turn 2. Play this. We don't do anything. We don't do anything at all because there's nothing to do. Next turn, we go here. Right? We do this. We've drawn our card. We cast Belbe. Paying the extort cost through here. Cast a spell. Everyone's going to lose 1 life. Go to post-combat, passing through combat. And we play Ugin. Colorless spells cost 2 less to cast. Next turn, boom. We probably try to do the same thing. This one's free, but we go here. We got 9 mana. I don't know. This one's a little bit difficult, right? But we don't know what we're going to draw into. But things like this. So that is basically how the deck functions. There are plenty of times. Ooh, that last hand was a turn 3, turn 2, something. But anyways, that is Belbe. Belbe is pretty broken. Belbe is pretty crazy. She does a lot. She's quite the powerful creature, if I do say so myself. Especially if you're able to get off a turn 2 or a turn 3 kind of eldrazi on the battlefield. Your opponents can't really do too much against that. And it's a relatively cheap deck. I mean, only $127. That's pretty good, especially when you consider that we have an Ulamog in here, an Apex Devastator, a Kozilek. Like, we've got all these crazy creatures, and they're going to do a lot for the battlefield and stuff like this. If you want, right, if you want to upgrade this, any of these Ulamogs, right, that's like $30. This one's also $30, right? If you want an Emrakul, right, you can just, it's $8. This is $40, right? If you really want to make some crazy adjustments and budget restricted or budget restrictless upgrades, those are definitely some places that you can look out for. But this is the list that I have settled on, and this is the list that I'm going to be playing for the next couple of weeks and just trying it out and having fun playing Belbe. If you guys enjoyed this content and you guys enjoy a lot of this content, please feel free to tell me in the comments below. Please feel free to subscribe, check out my Patreon. And yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. I will see you guys all in the next video. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.